started. Thank you so much for everybody who has taken the time to join us today. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about business roles in tech, and we are joined by three lovely panelists. Today, we have Eugene Liu, who is a product marketing manager at LinkedIn. We also have Sahil Shangle, who is who works on global strategic pricing with Apple. And we also have Angelica Chan, who goes by Jelly, who is a product marketing manager at Intuit. As I should also mention, for those who I haven't met yet, my name is Janelle Spark, and I'm the employer engagement manager for Haas at Berkeley Career Engagement. I partner very closely to put on these types of events with Karen Lin, who I will let introduce herself.
Thank you, Janelle. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Karen. I'm a career educator at Berkeley Career Engagement, and I see Haas undergrad students one-on-one in groups, and we do workshops and career fairs for you as well. So thank you for joining us today. And then we'll go ahead and get started with our guest introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. So, unlike engineering roles or consulting or banking tracks, business roles in tech typically don't have a structured on-campus recruiting timeline, which can make them feel harder to break into. So in this panel, we're really excited to hear from recent UC Berkeley alumni who've actually navigated these different paths and carved out roles in tech. They're also going to share some lessons that they've learned along their journeys and provide some advice for you all to hopefully learn from today. So thank you so much again to Eugene, Sahil, and Jelly for joining us today. We are going to jump right into questions. Question number one, can you briefly describe your current role and how does your team contribute to the larger business goals for your company? Jelly, I'd love to start with you.
Sounds good. So I am a product marketing manager for QuickBooks Payments. And what PMMs do is we own go-to-market strategy. So we start by developing messaging and positioning, and then we have to monitor every part of the marketing funnel so that it from awareness to adoption. And we work very closely with product managers to do this. So product managers would build the product and we would be working in lockstep together. And then we would make sure that after the product is buttoned up, that we help drive adoption of that product. So we start with from a top of funnel perspective, we'll work with social media marketers and PR to increase more awareness of that product. And then we'll also work super closely with sales to make sure that they're able to convert leads into using customers. So, and that would essentially be how what product marketing managers do.
Thank you. Sahil, would you mind going next?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on the pricing strategy team at Apple for our services. So we recommend prices and monetization strategies for worldwide services. This includes things like Apple Music, TV Plus, and the App Store. A few of the considerations that we use for our recommendations include just overall business objectives, the competitive landscape, and what the financial impacts of different proposals might be. There's constant changes being made around the world, and you might think, how does pricing need a full-time job? But it turns out to be a busy role for our small team of 5.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then Eugene, would you mind going next?
Yes, I would love to. So, hi everyone. I'm Eugene Liu, and I am part of LinkedIn's product marketing team. And like Jelly, I actually work on the payments team as well. So, as a snapshot, anything that you purchase on LinkedIn as a user, and then in the future, if you're part of a corporation to purchase things and bigger products on LinkedIn, my team ensures that it is a safe payment, and then safe and secure payment. And then on the product marketing side, in addition to handling launches and chasing adoption for our users, I also work on foundational product research to know the competitive landscape and to decide on what to build. And how to be competitive as a payments platform and see payments as a growth driver rather than just a function to take in payments to complete the transaction. So I also work on growth experiments as well as launch activities.
Great, thank you. Um, so tell me, what does a typical day or week look like for you? And then what skills or knowledge help you to succeed in your roles? Eugene, since you went last, I would love it if you could go first.
Yeah. So the thing about being in product and being a product marketer within a very large platform team and within one of the biggest platforms in the world is that there is no typical day, and there is no typical week, because when things are moving really quick, especially at a big company and small companies, you have to be very agile. You have to be very adaptive, but you also have to own your core of what you have to deliver at a high level. But getting all of the inputs and details of what's changing in the world. And especially as a product marketer, you have to be an eye on the external market. You have to know what competitors are doing. You have to know what users want as well. So in short, it's never a typical day, and that's what keeps it very fun to be in a product role. And the skills and knowledge that really helps with that product management and product marketing is to always be aware of what's up and coming. And beyond that, it's to also have predictions about what's coming and making bets about what's coming as well. Since I'm about 8 years into my career, I've seen a lot, gather a lot of data points, seeing how the market moves in the payment space and in the marketplace space. So as you get more and more up in seniority, instead of executing, you will be responsible for making recommendations, making bets with decisions, and influencing leaders to agree with that, to bring in data, to be very data oriented, as well as being able to synthesize all of that data and apply it to your company or your goals or your future startup if you want to go through the founder route. So yeah, if I were to sum it up, it is heavily researching, heavily being on top of the market, and then being able to predict the market and being able to think in bets, and then leadership management and leadership stakeholder management as well.
Yeah, definitely sounds like a lot of drawing on those research skills that I'm sure many of our students are really drawing on today. Cool. Sahil, I'd love to hear from you next.
A little bit unlike Eugene, I'm a little bit more early in career and focused on the execution part within our team. And so most of my day is spent in Excel building financial models, and the rest is spent translating those findings into more understandable slides and going to meetings where we socialize insights with business teams and present our findings. In terms of skills or knowledge, I think curiosity, willingness to learn, and attention to detail have been the most important traits for the role. I didn't come into it with any Excel or technical business knowledge in that way of defining it. Although I did have some programming experience, I had previous internships in PM and strategy roles, and I was comfortable with microeconomic fundamentals, which I think helped me secure the role.
Yeah, definitely. All different skills, I'm sure, have helped you to be successful in the role that you're in now, not just the direct ones you're drawing from now. So I'm really glad to hear that. Jelly, I'd love to hear from you.
So, in terms of what I do on a typical day, I usually start with creating a to-do list for myself based on the multiple projects that I'm managing. And depending on how big of a company you work for, product marketing managers might have to do everything from like creating email content and building the email and sending the email marketing campaign. But at Intuit, product marketing managers are solely responsible for the strategy, and then we work with other marketers to actually execute on that. So in terms of how that affects my day to day, a lot of my day is just following up with people on statuses and having stand-ups and making sure things are going according to plan. And while waiting for those replies and waiting for certain projects to make progress, I'm similar to Eugene, analyzing market research and also certain data points to see what our next area of opportunity is. And because within marketing, you always want to make sure you position your product uniquely in the market. So it is important to understand what is currently out there and what the current sentiment around your product and other competitor products are. And in terms of what skills or knowledge would help, I would say definitely strong communication and organizational skills, and to be more specific, especially at larger companies, the ability to influence is really important, and being able to um, concisely communicate your idea, almost similar to a pitch. The data points that prove why this idea will work and why it will drive business impact is really important. So being able to, number one, know what data points matter to leaders, and knowing how to display it in a way that's really easy for them to digest. So it could be both from a visual communication standpoint, so making PowerPoints and decks, or even just a one pager that outlines the strategy in a really concise way, as I mentioned earlier. And another, in terms of organization, being able to create systems that optimize visibility across multiple teams. I get a lot of people from I get a lot of stakeholders asking me like, oh, what's the update on this, or what's the progress on that? And being able to have a source, like one source of truth document where everyone knows the progress of a certain project, and being able to easily communicate that is really important in terms of just saving yourself time, and making sure people know what projects you're working on and how much progress you've made.
Yeah, that definitely resonates. That's actually something that I work on a lot in my role with BCE. So totally feel you on that, and glad that you highlighted it. As for our next question, business roles in tech do not have standard campus recruiting cycles. How did you go about finding and landing your role? Did you have to do more cold outreach, networking, or off-campus applications? What strategies helped you the most? Sahil, I would love to start with you this time.
For sure. I applied during my first semester. I applied during the first semester of my junior year for a non-tech PM internship with a referral from an alumni in a consulting club that I was in called TBG. Uh, and I was super active with it, but the referral was definitely something that helped a lot. I wasn't selected for the role that I applied to, but the recruiter reached out to me with an opportunity on the pricing strategy team that I currently work in. Once I got the opportunity to interview, I reviewed the job description super carefully and I made a bunch of practice questions for myself. It was things like, tell me about yourself. Why do you want this role? Can you explain price elasticity? And just fundamentals like that really gave me the confidence to answer whatever was thrown at me during the interview process. And that really helped me go in with confidence, but also enthusiasm about what I could bring to it and how excited I was to learn and contribute to the role, even though I didn't have um, a lot of the experience that other people did.
Yeah, I think that showing up with that curiosity and that preparation really goes a long way, especially in first round interviews. So thank you for sharing that. Jelly, I'd love to hear from you next.
Yeah, so if I'm being completely honest, I was very lucky in how I landed my role. I used Handshake to get an internship at Intuit, and then I got a return offer, and I didn't have a referral or anything. So it was truly luck-based in that sense, and I'm very grateful I was able to get that opportunity. But in terms of the outreach portion, I can provide insights on what it's like being on the opposite side when people cold outreach to me. So I'm sure like the other panelists, we receive a lot of messages from different students about coffee chats and referrals and things like that. And I unfortunately don't always have time to address every single one of those messages, but there are certain messages that do stand out to me in terms of who I want to learn more about, or who I reply to. And it's usually people that have done their research on what I do and my background. So people that have either brought up the fact that I'm interested, for example, in both creative and analytical aspects, and that's something they're interested in doing within a tech space. And then in addition, people that are very direct about what they aspire to do and what they're looking to learn and hear from me. So those are tips I can give on cold outreach.
Absolutely. That's always necessary. Thank you for that. And Eugene.
Yes. Since I'm 8 years into my career, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the current kind of job search environment has changed a lot. And it has gotten very competitive, and it's really rough for current graduates, early career folks. But what I can say is that I have gone through the job search process recently as well. So I can give tips on how to stand out in a very crowded market as well, and how to kind of be above the fold, and really do what you can to be the top candidate in every case. So when I started off my career, I actually cold applied, and I cold applied to PayPal, specifically Braintree/Venmo. That was a smaller startup that got acquired by PayPal. And I was very strategic about my targeting because I had specific interests. I wanted to go into payments. It was a common business logic that I was used to. Everyone pays for everything. So I anchored on what was interesting, what I knew the most about, and what was really loyal to me, in terms of being a consumer and the brands that I use every day and that I care about. So that really does stand out to companies, because as a product person, they're thinking, hey, are you a user? And in a lot of interviews I've had, especially for newer companies and startups, they'll ask, have you used our product? Have you tested it out? How is it? And some people will explicitly say, make a test account and go through it if you're not already a regular customer. And if you don't do it, then that would be a miss, because it's right there. You should always know how the products work if you want to work with them, because it's being above the fold and getting a firsthand from the outside. And the outside perspective is very important. If you don't have that experience, if you're not in the inside, it is that kind of raw experience that you can give as an end user standpoint. So really use that to your advantage, and even make a list of all of the brands and tech brands that you're loyal to, and really like make a wish list of all the things that you like, and like really start from there. To show that you care about the product and you care about the users. I also, overall in my recruiting, I do prefer to apply directly. I do prefer to do a lot of coffee chats, even before I need a job. So even when I have a job, I'm always networking with folks. I'm especially networking with folks from competitor companies, because I think about, hey, we're all going to work in the same industry. Let's get to know each other. Let's be friends. I go to a lot of conferences, and I make sure to connect with everyone, and especially on the product marketing team, and especially on the product team, because you don't know if they can look for a job in the future and they might need to ask you for a referral, or vice versa. So the best time to look for a job is actually when you have a job or when you don't need a job. So I really recommend that, to lead with curiosity and understand from people when you're asking that referral, hey, how did you get into your role? What interests you about going into this company? What was your career trajectory like? And I go to a lot of leaders and ask, hey, you're a director, you're a VP. What did you do to get to your point? And what advice would you want to give me as someone that wants to achieve the same career trajectory as you? And other strategies that really help is that as you mature in your career, recruiters are going to come up to you. And even now, as a Berkeley student, recruiters are going to code outreach to you. So you have to make sure that you are searchable, you are findable, and that you demonstrate all the skills that you know and your interests, to make sure that the right recruiters know who you are and can find you easily. So shameless plug of always optimizing your LinkedIn, always making yourself visible, always engaging with the right topics that you're interested in. And that's how the recruiters on the other end are looking for the right candidates that care about the right thing. There's a quote by a very famous VC, Arlen Hamilton, that says, you have to be authentically yourself, because the right people that need to find you, they need to find you. So make yourself searchable, and make your interests and curiosity very visible. And then you're going to find the right people that need you, as well as like you want to work with them.
Yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought in networking as a piece of advice for folks at every level, not just in the future, not just for the future, but for right now too. I think the example of using conferences too is really, really helpful. And for students who are joining us today, I want to emphasize you can do that with each other too. You can do that with each other other folks who are on this call as well. But we'll get into that more later. Just throwing it out there, I do appreciate you all being here today. Okay, for our next question, what advice would you give to a junior who wants to break into business roles in tech? Were there any specific classes, clubs, or projects that you would recommend? And this is very open-ended. So if you have any thoughts that are not directly quoted in this question, then feel free to bring them up. Jelly, I'd love to start with you for this one.
All right, sounds good. So in terms of advice, I would say I think continuing to explore and put yourself out there in terms of the roles and the extracurriculars you participate in. So that, and I can segue into the next question, which are like what classes and clubs and I'd recommend is anything hands-on and that will have a project output that you could include in a portfolio. I think this also depends on your learning style, but I personally know that I learn better when I actually have to like create a project or create output out of the class. So some classes that do that, I know there's one entrepreneurship one where you have to create a pitch deck to a VC. There's also a consumer insights class where you get to work with the company and provide I don't remember the exact project, but you do have to provide a like a slide deck to pitch as well to the company that is chosen for the semester. And all of those things help you like one, work with a new team that you're not familiar with. So just being able to navigate working with different opinions and different stakeholders, as well as learning the ability to influence, as I mentioned earlier. I was also in a consulting club in college, which was really helpful for me, but I know that the consulting club scene is quite competitive at Berkeley, so I also don't want anyone to feel like they need those clubs to get a non-tech role in tech. But I think they were helpful in terms of teaching me those skills, but I also had like other part-time roles on campus. There are so many opportunities if you look for them, whether it be for just Daily Cal, like there's always a business angle to every institution or club at Berkeley. I also was a marketing assistant for Berkeley Lab, so there's I would just encourage everyone to search for like business opportunities, no matter what like industry or vertical these like certain spaces and companies are in.
Yeah, absolutely. Eugene, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, echoing Jelly, there's lots of really great resources on campus, and hands-on experience is very important. And the current state of the kind of tech world right now is that AI has really lifted the barrier on building things, and you don't need to know how to code anymore. Technical skills are always going to be needed, but the barrier to build and get users to start using your product, to test a lot of things, has never been easier. And the people that do really well in building are creative people. So any instance that you have an idea of, go on Lovable, go on Replit, and try to solve your problem and get users to do it and really have that hands-on experience by yourself as well, being very high agency. But tactically, for things on campus, I specifically utilize the Siddhartha Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. There's a certification course where it's about, I think, 6 units of lots of leadership classes, tech leadership experience, startup education. They also did really fun programs where they invited lots of founders to talk to Berkeley students. So Marissa Meyer came, Mike Olson from Cloudera, and they would come into our classes specifically and talk to us directly, as well as be in big speaker events. So that was basically like a boot camp in how to do startups, how to be in tech really early, and you get a really intimate experience with them. And in a lot of the classes, I remember there was a leadership class by Professor Stephen Torres, and it was one of the hardest classes I ever took for one unit. You had a reading every single week. You had about 2 Harvard business case studies that you had to read and be ready for a discussion. So that was a really good boot camp into case studies that you will see out in business and that you have to read and write as a product manager and product marketer. So those really give practical experience and they give you kind of the cheat code in networking because they're bringing the leaders directly to you. And that's a really unique thing about Berkeley. It's about 30 minutes away from San Francisco. So all of the founders do seek to come to Berkeley to talk to all of you. And other clubs and projects, I would say for clubs, be a whole person. I didn't do consulting clubs. I was slightly involved with political science, and that was a really good opportunity. But I was an athlete as well. I was on the fencing team and competing competitively. That still comes up in interviews because people are like, oh, that really stands out. Let me ask you a little bit about that before we go into, hey, are you qualified for the job? So really look for things that are interesting to you, that helps you stand out, that really helps you make friends, that really helps you create relationships, and do more things that are just, hey, for your career and for your education. It's really about creating your own circle of people and your own community that's every part of you and all parts of your interests. Other things that I did is that I was part of a cooking club, and that was really fun. It still comes up and I still love it. So, yeah, apart from that, really have fun with your time and really connect with people in all areas of your life. A lot of my friends are also interdisciplinary in that actually the majority of my friends are in EECS because engineers just really love building and they really love like being interested in things. So the intersection of EECS and cooking is that all of my really fun cooking friends are from EECS because they're applying that engineering brain. And we still talk about it to this day and like recommend restaurants, recommend like farmers markets. It becomes something that's part of your whole interest that I really like want students to not lose and not lose kind of the forest in the goal of like seeing the trees. So yeah, bring your whole self and make sure that you still have your passions and hobbies really core to yourself.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Sahil, we'd love to hear from you.
Lots of good advice from Jelly and Eugene already. I'll echo some of it, see if anything comes to mind while I do. The first one being what Jelly said about finding business opportunities wherever you are on campus. I think that was a great shout. It doesn't have to be a consulting club. It can be, but you can find a way to, you know, improve how any club is running wherever you are. You can find a way to contribute to your sports team in a business way if you want to. There's always a business role in tech, quote unquote, right? Like there's always technical things that people are doing, especially at a place like Berkeley, but non-technical things that they really need. And it's up to us to kind of make space for ourselves in those areas and find a way to contribute, even if they aren't asking. And that's how you're going to get that experience you need to show employers to give you a shot and to give you an interview in the first place. Because I agree, like do things that are fun for you, do things that are interesting, find new opportunities, but have ways to show that on your resume. Like I want you guys to be able to get interviews, which at least for me was like the hardest part. Like I remember when I was in college, I felt super confident about actually succeeding in an interview. It was just people not giving me a shot. And so having that experience and saying like, look, I did all these businessy things and all these creative ways because no one else has given me a shot was how I got my foot in the door. And so for me, that was a consulting club. I did volunteer at the food pantry and I helped them with their like gleaning strategy in local neighborhoods. Just random stuff like that can really make a difference. Take that business internship at that really small, shady company because at the end of the day, it's up to you to like find those skills and learn those things, even if it isn't where you want to end up. So don't be picky. Find things that you can do with what you have, and slowly it'll add up into a good resume, and that will only get better over time. And like Eugene said, have fun along the way. Your life isn't your resume, and surprisingly, living a good life will lead to a good resume and will lead to opportunities, even if you don't plan it out that way. So try to have fun with the process, but think about it like, how can I build an experience out of whatever I'm doing for whatever reason I'm doing it. And then I promise the opportunities will come. I know it just takes one. And I know it's so hard, especially for what we're trying to do with business roles and tech to get them. But you have us three reach out for like referrals and stuff. You have all these cool clubs on campus. You have so many smart people around you, so many good friends to make. These are all good things that'll help you get that one shot you need.
Yeah, what an incredible point to end on. Thank you so much for that, Sahil. Those are all of the questions that I had for our panelists for today. So shortly, we're going to move into open questions from our audience. Before we do that, I did want to really quickly highlight next week, for those of you who are able to join us, we will be hosting Daniel Shepard, who works at Uber, and he'll be focusing on soft skills, particularly within the networking space. So be sure to pre-register for that. Additionally, for those who have joined us today and have learned a lot, we would really appreciate it, Karen and I, if you could fill out the survey regarding insights that you took from today, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. Just wanted to highlight this because I really want to emphasize we can't put these on without your input. So we want to know what you want to learn more about. Thank you again for coming today. And we hope to see that later. Now, let me move back to the first part so everybody can see who our panelists were again. And I'd love to open the floor for questions. Feel free to raise your hand or shout them out. I can't see everybody who is in attendance today, so it would be helpful to shout it out. Otherwise, Karen, I will ask you to watch the chat. Yeah, Leslie?
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Also, I was gonna comment, for the chat, we're only able to send messages to the host and co-host.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, this is currently the setup. And then if you don't mind, send it to me. I'll read it out.
Oh, no worries. I can say it verbally. I just wanted to point that out,
Okay.
but no
Yeah.
worries. I wanted to ask, well, thank y'all for being here. It was really insightful. I was also like taking notes just because I feel like it's very valuable feedback, and especially the job market. It's just very intimidating in general. But my question was, there was whoever wants to answer all three, but it was on how do you handle feedback from your bosses, or yeah, like how do you take their feedback and how do you apply that to the work that you're doing?
I can start with answering that question. So, to anchor on feedback, I always approach feedback is a gift. You can accept it or you can not take it, but always acknowledging that, oh, thank you for that feedback. It's an observation and something that's helpful to either take and put into practice or, take with a grain of salt and keep in mind, right? So a lot of things with feedback, it has to be actionable, it has to be measurable, and then asking for advice on like how to make the best impact and like asking for examples so that it delineates from what is unhelpful feedback and what is concrete and actionable feedback. And asking for it is always really great. And it's thing as a person and you're asking for feedback, it is even asking for specific feedback of, hey, let's point out the wording of this. I'm a little bit unsure based on this. What is your take? Like, does it make sense? Or like that's being at the tactical level or at high level with your manager, it's like checking in every now and then on a bi-weekly process, monthly process, and checking in for big feedback and asking, hey, from your point of view, what are things that are working well? What are things that are not working well? Here's my perception of how things are working well and where I want to improve. Does that align with your perception as well? Or is there something else that I'm missing that you're able to give insight of? There's also multi-level of feedback because as you're working, your manager's perception is not only the most important part. It is their skip level. It is the people above there. It is your cross-functional partners. So 360 feedback is important. That after a project, send out a survey, formally ask for feedback in certain feedback tools like Lattice or Workday, and solicit that from people and ask, hey, while it's top and recent, how did that project go in your eyes? What can I improve? I always recommend it should anchor on what can I improve? What is doing really well that you want me to keep doing? And what is something that you want to add to challenge myself to even hyper focus on? If you were to have a wish list of how it could be better, what would that be? And really being open to that and receptive and inviting feedback is really important because I know what it's like to get negative feedback. It doesn't feel great. And sometimes you might want to defend yourself and like refute, but it's in the eyes of other people's perception is the truth that they see. So even if you disagree with it, it's acknowledging that, hey, that is the perception. How do I change that perception and improve it? And also looking at like, of course, the power dynamics of who's giving it, of when it's the skip level or the C level, they're like how they hinge on your future is very important. So it's also like, how do I make sure that I am the future executive that they are looking for as well? Because they are looking at a lot of early employees as potentially the future leaders of the company. And that is a very generous view, and that is the best possible outcome. And a lot of leaders want to do that and invest in young people. So always being hungry for that, always being adaptable and willing to improve is going to be your strongest asset, especially as a new person, where your potential is seemingly unlimited. So really have those first impressions and those really positive impressions of having a growth mentality.
Eugene gave some great advice there, and some things that I was thinking of when you asked that question is one, I think having a growth mindset and displaying that is going to benefit you no matter where you are. So always being open-minded to feedback and also following up on whether or not you've improved after the feedback has been given to you could also help your build your relationship with your manager, especially. And then another piece of advice that comes to mind for me is to not take anything personally. At the end of the day, we're all human. And like I've had people give me negative feedback before. And I remember it stung a little bit, but the next day, me and my stakeholder we are all good. So I think sometimes it's easy to get maybe emotional at like when you receive negative feedback, but just remind yourself and like give yourself time to take a breath and think about like what you can do to improve and just remember that we're all human. Sometimes the way we communicate things may not be as gentle as we may personally prefer, but that's another person's working style. So not taking anything personally and just seeing how you can improve from there.
Those are great. I have nothing meaningful to add.
I respect the honesty. Nikhil, it looks like you had your hand up next.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for speaking with us today. And hi, Sahil. It's great to see you again. I just had a quick question. So, how's the upward mobility in tech and specifically your role, and how does it compare to under other industries?
I can start for the sake of balance. So I think it varies a ton team to team. Like a lot of these business roles and tech areas are very random and like they're very niche functions. I think it sounds like Jelly and Eugene have more like well-established programs like PMM is, everyone knows what that is, but at least for me, like pricing, like I didn't even know that was a career until I got the thing. And so when it comes to upward mobility, uh, it's probably not as great as someone doing consulting or IB or one of the more like businessy roles at a businessy place because there's just no status quo for it. Like there's no pipeline, there's no cohort coming in, there's no set place that your manager goes after a few years. And so it is a little slow for me. But I do think that depending on the role, it can be a lot better. Like I'm curious to hear what Jelly and Eugene say. I'm sure there's a much more established pipeline for them, but what I do want to shout out is it might be a great forever role, but it might not be a great established growth promise. Like you might have to do your own work jumping around or finding the next opportunity just because it's less cohorted or established than other jobs out there.
I kind of wanted Eugene to go first because she's more experienced than I am. But I know for my company, it's usually an I'm curious to see what Eugene has to say. But there's like the individual contributor path, and then there's the people manager path. So if you want to be an individual contributor, that means like you basically are only mainly creating strategy and executing versus like managing multiple people and the people's projects. But it goes from like product marketing or sometimes associate, then product PMM, then senior PMM, and then principal. So that's like the highest individual contributor you could be. And then people manager goes from like a senior product marketing manager and then a lead. But that's or a group. That's usually how it works, at least at my company.
Yeah, thanks, Jelly. The part on kind of levels and the IC and people track is really important as well because it is a lot of folks like individual path that they want to choose and think about like short term, midterm, and long term. I would say in terms of upward mobility, there's a lot of changes in the market that's really changing what is career and linear paths. And I want to just level set that career is never linear. It's never a straight path. It's kind of you go here, you do a couple of detours, you go around. It's like you're mapping out lots of different skills at different size companies, at different verticals, at different company stages. Either seed stage startup, there's nothing, and you're looking for funding, or you're mid-stage Series C, and you can either sell out as a company or go IPO. So today now, there's like I would be remiss if I didn't say that there is no career path. Even people that are very experienced, they constantly reinvent themselves and think like, hey, I've been at LinkedIn for like a really long time. I think it's the right time to go to a startup. And I want to take that risk and build something and own something. So never before it's at the hands of what you want because there's so many tools and opportunities out there and kind of hint capital from VCs to make it happen and direct line to revenue to customers. So never before is your career in your hands. So if you want to go the founder route, if you want to be an investor, if you want to work for a corporation or a startup, it's the thing of that there's so many opportunities and so much honestly fun out there of what you can do. And especially as a Berkeley student, where like you're a target candidate for so many places, you actually have the first pick of what you want to do. So never before is it just understanding yourself and where you like to take ownership, what you want to try out, because you don't know unless you experience it. And I've been employee number 6 at a startup. I've been right now I'm employee 22,000 at LinkedIn. And then I've been in 100-size companies, like 800-size companies, recently IPO. So I've seen a wide range of what mobility looks like. I will say something is constant and that's always valued is technical skills. And that doesn't mean coding. It means the technicalities of your workflows, of certain regulations, of what are product metrics. That is always going to be very important. And I do see a trend right now, and especially in hiring stats and kind of even layoff news of there's a lot of kind of elimination of kind of mid-level roles that are solely people manager. There's a lot of people managers that are now being asked, hone in on your IC skills. Make sure that you can jump in and do the work as much as you can and be close to your core function and not just managing people. So being high agency is really important for upward mobility. Like Sahil said, it's raising your hand and taking the initiative that I want to do something, or I have an idea and a bet. I want to take ownership and do it. That's going to give you the most upward mobility of taking bets in your career. And sometimes it's putting your name to this bet that, hey, I think entering this market is going to be a strategic advantage for my company. Here's the research to do it. Here's the decisions that I'm asking to make, and here's the resources. You as a leader, like, what do you think about this? It's like raising your hand and convincing your leadership to make those bets, or you making the bet and taking a leap to being a founder and owning all of that. Those are going to yield a lot of rewards. And I mentioned startups a lot because that changes a linear like career mobility upward trajectory. Because the bigger risk you take, especially as a startup, the most massive the rewards. And there's a lot of hiring of former startup operators that have grown things from 0 to 1, 0 to 100, and they are best positioned to, one, get acquired by parent companies, and then being like fast tracking to being a director or a VP, and then being an acqui-hire. So never before are the possibilities just kind of endless there. And I think that's the big thing that I want you guys to feel optimistic about your career about. It's doing your best work, always taking initiative, taking bets. It'll just open up so many pathways to like lots of different outcomes. So be open to those outcomes and be open to a lot of those positive opportunities when you do things at the core level really well and really care and really look out for growth within yourself, growth within the team, growth for your stakeholders, growth for your users. It's really opportunistic to really like go experiment a lot, see a lot of things, and to size opportunities for your future self, but also your current self. I've seen a lot of young founders right now that are really changing the game and kind of scaring the senior folks of, wow, they're really taking risk in marketing and they're really breaking a lot of patterns that traditional B2B marketers have done for lots of years. And I look at them and I think, wow, that is really gutsy and risky, and it's working. It's hard for the older folks to really change our patterns and adjust to that. So I really look at kind of the younger generation that are making things their own and really watching the market, watching the users, and applying their own style of what they think is really just out there and really effective for what they know. So sorry, it can't be a straight answer of this is what you do to get X, but I think that's a positive thing of there's kind of no rules right now. And that is a really great thing for people that are just starting out. Kind of a scary thing for senior people that, hey, can't change as easily. We're kind of set in our ways, but there's always a benefit of looking at a younger generation and seeing exactly how they're resonating with users and gaining efficiencies and winning those metrics. So really be creative, really be high agency. And that's going to get you a lot of rewards and upward mobility.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Any other questions from the audience? Feel free to raise your hand, shout them out, send them in the chat. Yeah, Nikhil, one more time.
Sorry, just a really quick one. I don't want to take up too much time, but if you could go back and like go through junior, senior year again, apply to internships, apply to full time, would you pick the same route or would you choose something different?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I would say if I were to go back in time, I would do more hands-on projects. I would take more ownership and build more, but the barrier to entry to building stuff and needing the engineering skills was a lot harder back then. So in the age of AI now, like I would do everything on my product wish list and all the ideas I had in my head and put it into practice. Something tangible to do now that's always going to be very important is talking to users, having a user base, doing as many interviews as possible. And one route to do it is, like Jelly said, research. Being part of Berkeley and one of the world's most funded research institutions, research is still a very needed skill. That the better you are in research, the better you are in your career, in your own ventures as well. So attaching to institutional research while you're a student is going to be very advantageous, but also outside of institutional research. Like if you have an idea for a product and you're trying to get Berkeley students to use it. I saw that a lot of my peers were part of, I think, Dorm Room Fund, and they were launching a lot of startups, going through Facebook, our Berkeley Facebook to gather users, and they were being founders as a student. And they were going up to people and saying, hey, you have a problem, let me solve it for you. Let me help you with your problem. Let me do all of that work and help you. I'm thinking of one person specifically, and he right now is a founder. And I ran into him at some startup conferences, and his company is like getting a lot of traction right now. But I remember very early on, he was putting himself out there and testing out all the different startups that he had and like really getting that dirty hands-on experience. And he admit he didn't know what he was doing. He was just focusing on solving problems for his peers. So really look at Berkeley as your own user group of we have highly engaged people. They're very open to using new technology. They are early adopters. Berkeley students and engineers in general are always the first ones to try lots of new technology. So if you have a new idea, and you might think that like, oh, who's going to use it? Berkeley students are one of the best people to experiment with lots of things. Like focus on quantity, talk to them, record those interviews, match all of those data points and patterns. Now you have firsthand, first-party data that companies will pay tens of thousands of dollars to get. And the bigger a company you are, the harder it is to get that research. So there's a lot of playground activity that you can do as a Berkeley student that I wish I did because now that I saw my peers were doing it, they're getting the top they're getting the top VCs, they're getting funded by kind of the biggest folks right now. And they're really setting themselves up for kind of a risky, like more riskier venture bet. But it started when they were 18 years old at Berkeley, and now they're like gaining funding and maturing their startup. So yeah, as a look back of my peers and what I see compounding as really great opportunities for them right now, I would go back and kind of mimic the same exact thing and just really get out there.
For me, I don't think I would want to change anything about my career path. I do really enjoy my role in the company I work at. So, and I've always known I wanted to do marketing. But in terms of things I'd want to change or I wish I did differently just for the sake of career growth and personal growth is I wish I networked more, especially with the people that were on my project teams. There are so many classes where you have to do a group project and I could have done a better job at connecting with all of my like project mates on LinkedIn because those are people that know how you work. So they're probably going to be more willing to give you a referral, especially if you did a good job on the project versus people that are complete strangers. So that's something I wish I did and was more proactive about.
That's a good one. Yeah, get along with the people in your classes. They could help you out professionally. Uh, I don't think I would change too much. Probably just brush up on some technical skills a bit more, get more project experience under my belt. Just do the stuff that you think you'd want to know in a couple years, but you know you won't have time for. You probably have more time now than you think. So if it's like a certain piece of technology that you want to get more comfortable with, like um, or just like a programming language, like, oh, I want to be really good at SQL, or I want to know what like this random technical term means. Maybe make like a quick list of things that you want to know in general and teach them to yourself now. But going back, I don't think I would change too much. Happy with the clubs I did and where I ended up. Um, it's best not to think too much about picking the perfect path or anything like that. Like I know it's easy to kind of ask, what would you do changing? What would you change going back? But it's not that deep. Like just do what feels right now. Spend your time wisely, you know, don't waste too much of it. It'll be all right. Like you won't regret too many things.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I also, something came up as well of what students can do today to take advantage of the opportunity that they have as a student. I'm currently facing this problem where um, I need to talk to an EECS professor because he's in the cutting edge of AI fraud detection. And if I constantly think about this of I wish I went to office hours more and talk to professors not about the topic of the class, but research the professors and know what they're writing about, know what they're on the cutting edge of their research, because they actually do inform industry. They're also investors, they're also founders, they're also connected to a lot of people and are thought leaders that, hey, me as LinkedIn, as a company, I need to get some of these Berkeley experts to talk to my company ASAP. And I wish that I met all the different top leaders at Berkeley in this kind of informal coffee chat way so that later we can combine these opportunities together. But I would say that a lot of office hours was very intimidating before. But I remember I had a class where office hours was mandatory, even if you don't have a topic. So that meant that the professor was going to talk about anything and everything. And what the professor wanted to talk about was, hey, what are your job opportunities after? Like, what are you working on? What are you caring about? And then like they're interested in you. They're very interesting people that they're working on interesting things. So really approach each other with, hey, professor, like, I read this about you. I read your book. I read these articles. What is your opinion on this? Like, what are you currently working on that like one is going to be very interesting to you, but hey, I want to keep in mind in case I might need your help in the future or you might need my help. So really networking with your professors first and foremost, because they are Nobel Prize winners. They are on the cutting edge of like they are dictating what the world is going to change and be like, or they've already changed the world. So really take advantage of the opportunity you have to these folks that are normally not accessible by the general public. And some data points to point to that is Fei Li from the Stanford Center for Human AI Application. She talks about the interdisciplinary work of AI. And she said, the first department that I always talk to is the political science department, because the things we work on in AI and the cutting edge of AI, we have to talk to the policy writers to make sure we roll it out in the most ethical way. So look for patterns and connections where you think it might not be there, because in the real world, it actually is there. And being close with the professors that are working on it, they'll recommend you to opportunities and they'll recommend you based on, hey, I know this really curious person. They're asking really good questions. And that is what your company needs. Let me connect you. And overall, it's, oh, this person is really friendly and they're coming to my office hours. I really like to talk to them because that is just pleasant and really fun. Professors are people too. So apart from what they do and influence in the world, they're people at the end of the day. So they'll love to be asked, like, what are you doing on the weekends? What are the coolest restaurants you're going to? How are your kids? They do want to talk about that. And it's really interesting to know that as well. And some figures that were really important in my education career was Robert Reich from the Goldsmith School of Public Policy. That fun fact, he created FMLA that everyone in the US working world considers at one point to make sure that they have a healthy career. So really look at the people that are making policies that everyone uses right now because they are very influential there, and Berkeley's very lucky to have them. And you are also very lucky to have them. And they will trust a lot of Berkeley students that go to their office hours. And it's a little harder graduating and saying that, like, hey, I need your help right now. But if I made those connections in undergrad, then they're going to remember that and say, like, yes, I would absolutely love to help you right now. So, yeah, make friends with your professors. They're very friendly and they want to be friends with their students.
I love that. Thank you so much for your insights there and also for tying it back into kind of the career preparedness academics integration. Absolutely, it's something that we're trying to support and foster through Berkeley Career Engagement and through Haas. I'm going to stop the questions there. I wanted to give a big thank you once again to our awesome, awesome panelists. Thank you again so much for joining us today and providing these really in-depth insights. For those who didn't join us right at the beginning, they did share that they are open to connecting with you on LinkedIn. So if you have further questions to share with our panelists, then be sure to find them there. Other than that, again, if you didn't hear me say it before, please be sure to provide your insights through the survey that Karen has sent in the chat, and which I will be sending shortly after this. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week as well at our soft skills focused webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jelly. Thank you so